Hello, everybody. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome to another Professional Genealogist Reacts live stream. As usual, be answering questions, talking genealogy, DNA testing, and whatever else is going on in the genealogy world. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to try to, I always try to adjust how I look before I get on here, but then every time I get on it, it always seems to be just a little glitchier looking. Should be good enough. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Starting a little quicker than I usually do today. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe you can all let me know. But we'll see what everyone's thinking in a second. Before we jump into anything, I do just want to remind everybody about the new Clips channel. Would greatly appreciate it if you have not subscribed yet. Please subscribe. Watch the videos. There's a good amount of clips up here now. So as you can see, I'm cutting down clips out of live streams from all sorts of different live streams, and some of them, like today's video, are really long. So it's like almost full videos instead of just clips sometimes. But if you haven't checked it out, definitely go check it out. Would greatly appreciate that. I'll kind of leave that up there while I go through the hellos. And actually, maybe I can also use this time to adjust. Oh, it didn't save my settings. What is going on? Why is it not saving? Okay. Weird. It didn't save my settings. All right, we're gonna I need to set some of this up real quick. Yeah, what is it doing? I don't know how. StreamYard did an update recently, and it is not working well. I don't. why it's. I have the whole setting, so I should be a circle instead of this whole thing. What is it doing? All right. Well, we'll go with this. That's the that gives us the largest screen. I have no idea why it's doing this. It should have. It's like they completely changed all of my settings. Oh, that's annoying. That's really annoying. Okay, well, we're not going to focus too much on that. Hopefully, it doesn't look terrible. Yeah, look at that. That's not how I want it to look. But hello, Anna. Hello. All right. So me. Oh wow. All right. Hello, Gazillion from Portugal. Stig coming in from Norway. We've got Julia. Hello. Hello, Alexandra. Hello, Stephen from Carson, North Dakota. Population 250 strong. Hello, Sharon. Hello, Luana from Maryland. Hello, Stephen. If taking questions, I have an immigrant ancestor from 1899 that I cannot find her parents no matter what I try. So yeah, I am taking questions. I'm not building trees like I am on the main channel like I did. This is just the answering questions, which I should say at this point, any questions that come through chat, I will try to answer as many of them as I can. I don't guarantee it, but if you do a question through a super chat, I do guarantee I will answer those, largely because it posts up where I can see it very easily. But also it helps support the channel, and I greatly appreciate that as well. But if I don't answer your question in chat, don't fray. You can keep asking. You don't have to pay for it, but I just don't guarantee if I will answer those questions. But in terms of how to find these immigrant ancestors' parents, if you have a specific question with it, like maybe a certain area or something that you're researching, then definitely ask that. But a specific hey, build this tree, won't be doing that here. Yeah, so Gazillion have a question on how Genie works. I'll keep an eye out for that. Subscribed and watching clips. Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia. My cousin Catherine. Hello, Catherine. How are you doing? We've got James coming in from London, UK. Michael Rochester. I wish you could try looking at my DNA, my Wicked Tree, and Ancestry and tell me why I'm getting no Megasin hits on my Y DNA, but I am getting Megasin family in my DNA, quite a few of them. Interesting. So the thing that I would think there is that there's an NPE somewhere in your paternal line, but how far back it is the question. So the route that I would take in that case would be going to the most distant cousins of yours that have that Megasin name. I guess. Yeah, so if for any cousins that have that Megasin name, if it's like you have a 7th great grandfather through that paternal line and Megasin male descendants that descend from a different sibling than you descend from, then go down that line, have them test, and if you don't match on the Y DNA, then that there's the MPE there. But if you do connect, then that proves that you are proven at least that far back. And so this is where it becomes especially helpful if you do big Y and go on a family tree DNA and look at their big block tree. Or if you look in their Globe Trekker tools for Y DNA, you can get some of the info there too. But basically, it's just a matter of trying to prove as far back as you can that Megasin line with Y DNA. And if the autosomal is proving, back so far, which it only is going to prove back so far, maybe, 4th, 5th great grandparents at best, because even once you get that far of distance of cousins, the amount of DNA you usually share is so small that even though you do match through that line, it may be DNA related through some other line you don't know about. So, yeah. All right. If you have a more specific question with that, ask it. Yeah, let's keep going. Jose, am I late? You are not late at all. You were right on time. Haven't even been going 10 minutes. So, yeah. Eric Sheridan, hello from Kansas City, Missouri. Hello, Eric. Wonderful to have you as always. A gazillion question on Genie. If one user created a profile with wrong details, attributed husband's surname to a woman that never adopted her husband's surname, how do we solve that? Well, it depends on a few things in a sense. Technically, you can go in there and, well, technically, if you can see the profile and you can edit it, you can go in and just change it yourself. There are places where you can connect sources and make notes about, why it is that way. There's even a discussion tab. That's not to say that someone might not come back behind you and change it back, whether or not you have proof with it. Assuming you do have proof with it and you go and change it and someone does that, then what you can do is you can contact a curator to say, hey, here's the proof I have for this. I changed it on here. This other person changed it back. Can you take a look at it? And basically, we can go in and basically kind of say, okay, yes, based on this info, this seems to be the correct thing. And if we need to, we can lock parts of the profile, put it on our master profile, and then things like that. It's one of Genie's systems of controlling edit wars, which an edit war is just where one person edits a profile and someone goes and changes it back to something else, and then they just go back and forth and back and forth. So that's kind of the process you can take. One other thing you can do with it, obviously, is contact the managers of that profile before you change it, or after you change it if you want. You don't have to contact them, but contacting whoever's managing the profile and just saying, hey, this is the information. What you have here is wrong. Here's why it's wrong. Here's what I have to show it's right, which, with a husband's surname to a woman that never adopted her husband's surname, that's one of those things where, you'll just need to connect as much documentation as you can to that profile to show, look, all of this documentation, none of that's included. So basically the idea of if you just message all the people that are managing it, then you might just be able to just get them to say, oh, okay, thank you for that information. But, sometimes you run into people that just, even if they're not 100% sure, just because they're the ones that put it in, sometimes they are a little abrasive about letting go of that. And that's why there's curators if you run into that. Now, if it's not a profile that you can edit, then you have to contact the managers and basically say, what you have is wrong. Here's the correct information. Please edit it. Depending on the profile, sometimes if you can't edit it, but it should be a public profile, basically it's someone who died within the time range that they're supposed to be a public profile. I don't remember the exact time, but it's like, people who died before, was it 70 something years? So 1950, or I forgot exactly what it is. You can look it up. But if it's someone that should be a public profile and it's not, you can go and ask a curator to change that. Those profiles are called zombie profiles because it'll be someone who's, born in the 1800s and it shows them as living or something like that. So hopefully that answers that question. So all right, let's keep going. Julia, just to let people know, a lot of UK genealogy sites are free this weekend. I'm looking at the 1921 census. Oh, that's awesome to hear. Thank you for letting us know. Mechanized, hey there. How are you doing today? I'm doing great. Hope you are doing well as well. Gazillion, I accept that the profile with wrong name coincides with the correct profile I created. If they are merged, which name prevails? If someone was not known as a name, just get rid of the name. There are a lot of people on Genie that end up adding name. Well, not just Genie, but all the websites. I feel like you go and see that names will be added to profiles. It's like, no, it's not like that. And depending on certain cultures, you may have that issue of somebody putting in information on a culture that they don't realize is different than their own, and they'll put it in a way that they think is correct. A great example, in America and the UK and Australia and all that, like in Canada and a lot of English speaking places, basically, a woman marries a man, they take the man's name. And so there's the married name. But in a lot of places, like the Netherlands, this is an example, women always go by their maiden name. So it's a big issue where if you're putting in family names for people that live their entire lives in the Netherlands, and you give the woman, the husband's name, that's wrong. That's not correct. So, you get a lot of that kind of stuff happening, and sometimes you need to go and edit it. That's been kind of an issue with a lot of the Dutch trees on Genie and stuff. And I have to admit, it was something that I had to learn the hard way when I started, because obviously I was researching a lot of Dutch trees through my family, and I was going about it in an American viewpoint of, my third great grandmother wasn't, Reina Robles. She was Reina Nunes Vaz, but she was born Reina Robles. Well, technically she was Reina Robles in all of the records of her in the Netherlands while she was there. Granted, she did move to the UK and she was known as Reina Nunes Vaz there, but still. Gazillion, is there a means for me to argue my case, or is it up to the higher ups? There's always a means to argue your case. That's the whole thing about a collaborative tree. Even if you get people saying, no, I don't agree, you can keep arguing it and bring the discussion elsewhere. So that you can there's discussions within profiles. You can do discussions within projects. You can just do a general discussion. So you definitely have a way to bring your case, and especially, contacting curators that can step in and basically take a look and let you know, okay, here's what you might need to prove your case. Here's what, we can do or can't do or whatever. It all depends on what you have. Jose, I wonder what chromosome my sister got the Irish reading from through my heritage when she found out about it on Earth Day this year. Yeah, I don't know. My heritage, I'm trying to remember if my heritage does a ethnicity. I hate using that term. One of the admixture calculators, one of the chromosome browsers for it. I know 23andMe does it. I feel like, didn't my heritage roll something? I'll need to look. I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering. I know 23andMe has it, basically, where you can look at your chromosome breakdown, where what your percentages from your admixture are correlated to on your chromosomes. James Burton, I also did a Y-DNA test and have no matches whatsoever to any Burton or Bunton, my actual paternal line surname. I joined both the Bunton and Burton groups on Family Tree DNA, but no luck. Yeah, that's always the difficult thing with Y-DNA, is if you're especially expecting to have that surname connection and then you don't see it. But yeah, the way to go about it is just to try to prove you're going generation by generation in your family line, and it's the paternal line specifically, and just trying to prove each generation with DNA. And, either you get to a point where you go, I know it's true up to this point, but I'm not sure past further, or you may be able to identify that point of, okay, there's an NPE here. I haven't had a chance to delve too deeply into it yet to try and figure out what it all means. I have all the documentation, but it's dozens, if not hundreds of cases. Yeah, I mean, you can just go through and just edit. And then there are a lot of people on Genie that they basically just kind of create their own projects in a sense. There's actual projects on Genie and you can do that whole thing, but just kind of in the sense of personal, this is what I want to do on Genie, or spend my time doing that. And if you do, I would love for you to do that, because that's just going to make Genie's tree stronger and make things more correct. And that's what I love about Genie, is that, yes, there may be errors in there, but we can all correct it and work on it together to make it a huge, large informational tree. And same thing with all the other collaborative trees, WikiTree, Family Search, and Genie. That's kind of the goal for all of them, is to make their trees as large and as accurate as possible. It's just that they're all kind of going about it in slightly different ways. So that's kind of the big difference. But, for me, I love Genie because it's where I find that I like the way they do a lot of stuff the most. It's the system I grew up with. So it's it's just my favorite. I'm a curator on there as well. I do use the other trees too, but a big part of it is, with Genie, I know how it works. It's really easy for me to deal with it. I know how to do it. And I can add stuff on the other trees, which I have done, but it's definitely, not as easy for me. So I like to focus my energy on Genie when I'm doing collaborative tree work, because that's where I've already done the most work, and that has the most correlated to me, I guess you could say. Eric Sheridan, question: have you used WATO plus thoughts? I'm pretty sure I've used WATO plus. I need to take a look and see what the WATO plus looks like. Oh yeah. I've definitely used WATO plus. Log in. Gonna log in, and then I need to make sure that. Do I remember my password? Yeah, I do. Okay. Need to make sure I don't have anything in here. Oh yeah. So what I'll actually show you all, I just need to do some quick edits. There we go. That should be good. Okay, so so here is the WATO plus tree that you may have seen. Oh wait, never mind. Not showing. I wasn't showing the screen correctly. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is the WATO plus tree that I built for the Max Miller family tree. So this is what I did in terms of identifying Max Miller's grandfather's biological father. So for anyone who has not seen the Max Miller video yet, a little bit of a spoiler here. So if you don't want to be spoiled about that, then you may want to jump away. But just kind of zooming in, the idea with WATO Plus is that you can put in a lot more information on what you want. So here, I'm trying to identify the biological mother of James, which is Max's grandfather, born in the year 1918, using the DNA matches of James's grandchild, Max. So this was me looking at the DNA matches that Max had. And then apply mother's age to the probabilities. So basically what I did is that for all these people, I'm putting in their birth dates and as much information as I can. And basically what I do is I put in these matches, this person, this person, this person, and then what? Okay, it's just those three. So what I did to find these people was I was doing clustering methods. I'm not going to go too in depth into it, but clustering is where you're looking through your DNA matches and finding matches that are all matching each other. And you can cluster those together. And the idea is that a cluster all shares a set of ancestors. So if you look at all these matches, family trees within a cluster, you will find a recent common ancestor for all of them. And so for this, I found these matches. There were other matches I found as well. Once Max's mother had done her DNA test. But basically, I put these in, and then I tell it to generate hypotheses. I'm not going to have it regenerate because it's kind of annoying to have to go through and do the editing, because what it does is it fills out everything, and it tells you what's the probability that this is where James fits in, based on the DNA. So it'll show it. Old WATO wouldn't show the grandfather and all that stuff. It would just kind of show generated hypotheses. Here, it's actually trying to give you a bit more and showing, well, here's Max, our DNA tester. Here's James, the person we're trying to identify who really fits in the tree, because it's Max's grandfather, and it's through him that we suspect that this is the family. And then it gives us these probabilities. And based on what we had, the most likely hypothesis was that it was going to be this hypothesis here, 46%, basically meaning that, Max's grandfather, James, would be a grandson of this John McNatt and Sarah Cole. I go through it in the video where I talk about how, even though that's the most likely hypothesis here, it ended up basically being very odd. Nothing seemed to fit properly with that, with the other parts of the DNA. And yeah, I won't say too much else. If you haven't seen the video, go and check it out. But this is the What Are the Odds Plus, WATO Plus. So yes, I have used it. And then you can go and watch a whole video about how I was able to use it. Not to necessarily, it didn't end up proving anything. It was somewhat helpful. But yeah, we ended up proving it was a cousin to this family. So it wasn't through John McNatt, but it was actually through John McNatt's they were related in two ways. That's okay. That's good enough. Okay, yeah. Basically all the women in my family between 1585 and 1960s. Yeah, edit away. I mean, there may be a lot of them. It's just up to, how much, the thing too with that is that if it's a lot of your family as well, and you're connected into Genie, it's going to be a lot easier to be like, look, this is my family. I know, once you get back, to the 1800s, then people are going to be like, well, now you're, yeah. All right, John. Hey, good evening. Good to have a Wikitreer here. Nick, hello from Groningen. Usually I'm proud to greet you all in Dutch, but today not so much after the Amsterdam pogrom last night. So sad that Mokum isn't safe for Jews again. Yeah, it was very sad to see that. Obviously with my connections to the Jewish community in Amsterdam, I'm hopeful that the Dutch will do something about it. I don't know what. But it's I think it's really interesting in the Netherlands in general, the way that a lot of Jews are looked at just because of how, Ajax and the Rotterdam team, basically it's like, it's based on Jewish themes, it's so it just makes it so weird. And I know from what I read, it seemed that the impetus for the whole thing partially was the soccer match going on, or the football match, excuse my Americanization. But that not necessarily, I don't know if impetus is necessarily the right word, but yeah, I guess that was a big part of, why they were whatever. But yeah, it's just, it's very, very sickening to see. But yeah, thank you for sharing your feeling. It's with the Netherlands, the Dutch people, I feel like they have, such a distinct history with World War II and dealing with, the Nazis and everything with the Holocaust and the Shoah. And, for something a lot of people don't realize is that the Netherlands is the only country, I believe, that there were open protests to what was happening to the Jews. So if you go to the Daniel Meyer Plain in Amsterdam, outside of the Esnoga, the Portuguese Jewish community synagogue, that's where the protest was held. And there's, I don't remember, it's the dock worker statue that I believe represents that. So yeah, it's a very, very sad thing to see that going on in Amsterdam today. Goedenavond vanuit Amsterdam, Vagenda Week weer vanuit Kent, UK. Good to have you, Rob. good to hear that you're in Amsterdam. Hopefully you're doing okay. Not sure if you saw anything that was going on yesterday. I found out through some research that my middle name is Spanish and Italian, so it makes sense that I'd have Italian ancestry if I use 23andMe. I mean, possibly, anyone can give a name to anybody that's, yeah. Granted, family names may be indicative. Vicky, would you think it's strange to not get any DNA matches on a maternal granddad's over 4 DNA sites? Only DNA from second great grandmother. DNA confuses me. I'm a little confused what you're asking. Would you think it's strange to not get any DNA matches on a maternal granddad's? Are you is like your great grandfather did a DNA test and you're not matching? That would be very odd. I guess it's technically not out of the. realm of possibilities. But I would imagine that's one of those, like, super rare outliers of probabilities in genetics, and inheritance and all of that. But I'm not quite sure what you're asking. So if you could clarify, because only DNA from second great grandmother DNA confuses me. Mechanized. I have a question regarding a DNA result I have. If you're all right to, ask away. Jose, I'm guessing my paternal grandfather has some Italian in him based on the Italian reading my sister got. All right. Frans Ferdinand, hello from Eindhoven, Netherlands. Our football team and Ajax have had a long-standing rivalry, and yes, calling them Jews is considered kind of normal in the football scene. Not a fan. Yeah, what's what is it? Super Yoden? It's not Super Yoden, is it? I know it's supposed to be Super Jews. The Hoodie Yoden. No, not super. Google's confused by me using Dutch words. Okay, yeah, Super Yoden. The Super Yoden van Ajax. So, yeah. So, yeah, but speaking of there was a really good video about this. I'm not going to watch it. I did think about doing it as a reaction, but then I kind of decided not to because I wouldn't have anything really that good to say about it. I do a reaction to one of his other videos, but basically, History with Hilbert did a video about why are Ajax and Tottenham Hotspurs historically Jewish clubs, which were really interesting. So something to check out. But yeah. Sebog, hello from Norway. Good to have you. All right, Vicky. No, there's just nothing matching me to my granddad by one match from a second great grandmother descendant in America. Yeah, I'm confused. Yeah. No, there's yeah. Yeah, what you're writing out is really confusing. Yeah, no, I get the feeling you're typing on a phone because the lack of punctuation. No, there's just nothing matching me to my granddad by one match from a second great grandma. Yeah, yeah. If you can try to type it out and really clarify, because this is kind of even more confusing. Now it sounds like you're saying that you have a DNA match that's matching you through your second great grandmother, but you don't have any other matches through this family that you were expecting. Which, I guess, if that's the case, do you have cousins that did DNA testing that you're expecting to be matches? Yeah, clarify, because I'm really confused. Gosh, I have like a bug bite on my side. Frank Maurice, I have a question. I've always thought my dad's granddad was a Jew from the East End of London, but I only got 2% Jewish on a DNA test. Why is this? Well, Dad's granddad, Jewish from East End, would be about 12.5% ish that you'd receive if that's correct. The other thing to consider is that maybe this great grandfather wasn't fully Jewish himself. If you're getting 2%, that would leave me to believe that maybe this great grandfather of yours was either a half or quarter Jewish, which a quarter Jewish would make even more sense, because if this great grandfather was half Jewish, that meant that your most recent Jewish ancestor would be a second great grandfather, which would be about 6% DNA. And then if it's a quarter Jewish, that would mean a third great grandfather, which would equate to about 3 point whatever percent. So 2% would make sense with that. Yeah, if you have other cousins from this family, see if you can get them to test and find out. But if you're talking about your great grandfather, build his tree and see what it says. Does it seem like, yeah, he was fully Jewish, or maybe you start building the tree and you realize, oh, actually, dad was Jewish and mother wasn't, or yeah. Neek, last night had not so much to do with Ajax, more Dutch immigrants and extreme leftists against Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters. Oh, okay, that's right. It was Tel Aviv's playing. Yeah, that's worrisome. That's worrisome. But maybe too complicated for YouTube chat. Yeah, I think probably too complicated. I mean, especially me being in America, all I know is what I can hear from the news. Granted, that's a lot of stuff going on with the news, but yeah, still, I think good to just acknowledge it and just talk about how worrisome it is. Evening, Daniel from Bristol, UK. Bit late, was having dinner. No worries, no worries. Hopegate. My grandpa's family is from Poland, Ukraine, Galicia, but he got 35% Southern Italian Greek on my heritage, yet almost no matches to people in those countries. Any way to explain? Interesting. I mean, with Poland and Ukraine, the Galicia area, I mean, it's kind of not, I mean, it's not super close to the Balkans, but it's kind of getting close there. So, I don't know. I mean, at 35%, that's a whole lot, but not to get any matches. I would, the other thing being on my heritage, which is notoriously the one that has the worst readings that most people say, I guess. I always have to figure out the best way to say it, because basically it's the one that people say does not adhere to what they know about their family tree the most. And then they do other tests and they do seem to match up. So it sounds like maybe that's part of the issue. My heritage doesn't release white paper, so we don't know what the precision recall is on their Greek Italian readings. But yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that I would wonder is it maybe not indicative as much of Southern Italian or Greek, but seeing if maybe there's a Balkan connection that you have somehow, especially maybe Balkan connections more along the coast, so maybe Albania or Croatia or, somewhere kind of along the coast. Let me pull up a map. Let me pull up Google Earth. That's probably better. But basically, I think it'd be a stretch of Greek or Italian, especially at that much, and not getting any, matches there. With my heritage, my understanding is there's a lot of people who are Greek and Italian who have tested on there. I could be wrong. Reset to north. Okay, let's hop in here. So over here, we've got the Galicia area is kind of like right. Okay. So the Galicia area is kind of like right here-ish, basically. Western Ukraine, and then Eastern Poland. And then, Balkan, we just start getting into the Balkans. And so with, Southern Italy, Greece, that's a pretty far jump. This is coming through. Yes, it is. Okay. But that is correlated enough into the Balkans, depending, that, I wouldn't be surprised that if you have, let's say a grandparent or so, or great grandparent, maybe that is coming from more of a, Southern Hungarian or Romanian or, what, today areas of, Northern Serbia, or just, somewhere kind of in this general area that, would then migrate north, and then, they're up here. And people in the historically moved a lot around here, a lot more than a lot of people imagine. In my own family, I have a family line from Kyiv that I recently discovered had actually come all the way from like the Suwalki, Poland area over here. And largely, I believe they were coming from Warsaw. Hopefully coming in a second. Oh, that's not Warsaw. Where's Warsaw? Warsaw, more southern. Yeah, okay. Much more southern. But still, so people were moving around a lot, and so that could be what's going on. So I would look into your matches and see, maybe are you getting Romanian or Hungarian matches, maybe even Serbian, or I was thinking maybe kind of along the coast. There's Croatia, Montenegro, Albania. No, Bosnia Herzegovina. It only has that like small strip, right? That like. Yeah, but either way, that's what I would imagine that connection may be indicating. And if you can do other DNA testing, oh no, is it frozen? Okay. I don't know if it froze. Yeah, my webcam's lagging. I don't know what it is today. My internet's going super slow. And it's definitely not my Wi-Fi connection, because I'm not on Wi-Fi. I'm direct plugged in. Straight in. I think it's Google Earth. I'm just going to close that. Close all those. So, okay. So yeah, so hopefully that might explain it. The thing is just you're going to need to do genealogy, or just look at your matches, or maybe, like I said, upload to another site and see if you can get something else. Granted, if you're on MyHeritage, the best site that I would suggest from there isn't an upload, but it'd be to test on Ancestry, and see what they get. Might not be a bad idea also to test on 23andMe if you want to just, cover all your bases. Granted, with everything going on with 23andMe, you might test on there and only have a little bit of time to get the stuff there, but that might be the reason to test there as well, because someone's tested on 23andMe that might be the link for you, the missing link to figure out some big part about your family. Maybe why are you getting this, Italian Greek reading? Then, that's the only place to get it. Okay. Mechanized. Wasn't so sure to ask freely, LOL. Well, I took an Ancestry DNA test previously, and I uploaded the DNA file to several websites, Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, Genome Link. However, the results seem a bit different across the board, including some trace results, but I thought maybe it'd be a bit easier to send the 4 screenshots to format it easier. Well, the thing I will say, don't send me the screenshots. This is something I talk about all of the time. Is that you're going to see differences across these sites no matter what you do. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'll go into a little bit of those reasons, but before I do that, what I want to say is that when you look at each of these sites, unless there's like a huge, vast difference to it in the regional sense of what it's saying, then it just becomes being more nitpicky about things. But basically, like I was just talking about with that, Italian Greek reading, and maybe looking into the Balkans and the connections of that and the maps and all that. And that's one of the ways to think of it. And when you're doing these tests, we call them an estimation. These results, not the DNA matches. The DNA matches are strong. We know those are matches. But with these, with the percentages, I don't like to call them ethnicity percentages. I know I'd say it sometimes. I hate using that term. It's just, easiest way to explain it sometimes. But basically, these sites have a difficult time figuring out the more local that you get in the readings. So as you get more local in the readings, the higher the likelihood of something weird going on or something wrong going on. And a big part of it, too, also has to do with the connection of populations and the difficulty of reading a lot of populations. So a great example that I use on here all the time, which honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being you, is Northwestern European readings are always going to be a huge mixture of your English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, French, German, Scandinavian readings. Now with all the new readings on Ancestry, the Low Countries too, and they have a Dutch reading or Netherlands reading, and it's pretty cool. They're actually doing pretty good with that. But basically you're going to get a huge hodgepodge of that. And even if you know your entire family tree to be English, you may end up getting, a little bit more, one site says 20% Scandinavian. The other site says, 10% Denmark, 12% Norway, and 4% Finland, or, and yeah, it's just, you get these random little variations. And basically that's what it is. It's not going to be any big, tell of when you look at all four of them, like, oh my gosh, this one, is really going to tell me anything new. The problem with looking at all these sites, specifically with the idea of just looking at the percentages, is it becomes a pick your own ethnicity. And people really dive down this rabbit hole too deep, in my opinion, when they jump into the GEDmatch calculators as well, because those calculators, there's like 20 or 30 of them. A lot of them are basically obsolete. A few of the people that have created some of those calculators that are still used today, like JTest, have come out and said, this is obsolete. Don't use this for anything serious. The big idea with the percentages in a genealogy sense is that when you look at them, you can get an idea of, is there something going on in my family tree that I wasn't otherwise expecting? But largely what these tests, or what the percentages are doing, is they're painting a very blurry image of your ancestry. And looking at 4 different websites for their percentages is like asking 4 different artists to paint the same exact scene. And when you have each artist painting the same scene, everything's going to be generally about the same. Like if they're painting a scene of like a woman walking a dog, like they'll probably all paint the woman and the dog somewhat the same, but then there's going to be little differences that each one does. And so it's kind of the same thing with these DNA tests, where they're reading the results slightly differently. The way they define the populations, they do it slightly differently. The DNA that they're testing, it's largely the same, but slightly different. So all these websites, if you test on Ancestry and then you upload those results to 23andMe, there's going to be some of the DNA that you tested on Ancestry that 23andMe didn't test for, so they're not going to use that in the comparison. But at the same time, 23andMe had DNA that they tested that Ancestry didn't test for. So when you upload your results from Ancestry, well, I guess 23andMe you can't upload, but MyHeritage, let's say, uploaded MyHeritage, then MyHeritage is, those DNA markers that they tested for that you're not providing in the Ancestry results, well, that's less DNA for them to tell from as well. So when you're uploading to more websites, that also causes other issues. And these are just some of the things going on with it. So hopefully that answers the question. I wouldn't be surprised if, once you kind of look at those and you kind of see like, yeah, regionally, it's all the same. Like that's the way to look at it. When you look at all of the different results, take a look and think of it regionally of, okay, well, if it's not, if one site's giving you German and the other site is giving you French, well, take a look where France and Germany are, take a look at the history. Okay, it makes a lot of sense, especially if you end up coming from, you look at your family tree and you end up coming from an area of like Alsace-Lorraine or something. So, okay. And with that said, because I know you said, wasn't sure if you can ask freely, everyone that's hopping in here, you can ask questions freely. I will answer questions through chat. I do not guarantee I will answer all the questions through chat, especially if chat starts going fast. But if you do a super chat, I do guarantee that I'll answer those. Number one, because I really appreciate the people that do that. It helps support the channel, helps me so I can keep doing this for a living and try to help people out this way. The other thing is that it makes it really easy for me to be able to see those. You do not have to pay for a super chat for me to answer a question, but I can't guarantee that I'll be able to answer the questions because sometimes I need to catch up with chat. All right, Eric. I know who my grandfather's paternal grandparents are. They had 3 sons, but I'm not sure which is the father. I know 2 of them were in the right location to be the father. No DNA testers from them. That's a shame, because when it comes to this kind of research, that's the way to figure it out, is to have the actual descendants test, because whichever line that you're coming through, those descendants are going to match you closer. Which it's really interesting correlation for anyone that watched the recent video from Stefan. Is this Stefan Milo? Yeah. So this video, Geneticist Explains Ancient DNA, really great video. Highly recommend you all check it out. But in it, he talks about how they analyze ancient DNA and they basically create the phylogenetic family trees for ancient hominids. And the way he said it, it was like, that's actually just a really good way to say how we do it in genealogy, genetic genealogy, as well as you just count the number of differences. And the ones that have the more differences are going to be further related. So same thing here, where if you've got your grandfather's paternal grandparents, but you're not sure which one of the sons it is. So your grandfather's parents, or one of your grandfather. So basically, one of your grandfather's gosh, I can't talk. Your grandfather's father is unknown. Your grandfather's father is one of these sons. So to be able to figure out which son it is, we need to find which descendants have the less amount of differences in DNA than you. And so I thought that was really, really interesting, because that's really exactly what we do. So yeah, hopefully that doesn't sound like some rambling nonsense, because I did not explain that the best. This is one of the reasons why with reactions there's so many cuts all the time, is because I really want to make sure in my reactions that I don't sound like a bumbling moron. Granted, I don't think I necessarily do, but sometimes it's hard to try to explain this stuff. Green Gorilla, greetings all. My family name was inherited through an unmarried female, but as this was 7 generations back in the year 1800, would it still be possible to find the unknown father with a DNA test? I think that it is possible, but it's going to be very difficult. The biggest thing is being able to do advanced DNA techniques, because it's at that distance. So I guess 7 generation back, that's what 5th great grandparents, parents, grands, great, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Yeah, 5th. Okay. So yeah, 5th great grandparents. So that's kind of right on the edge of being able to make real good use of autosomal DNA testing. But if you have enough DNA testers across the family, you might be able to do DNA painting to identify specific segments that have a high possibility of coming from that specific ancestor. And then maybe you can go from there. The best thing would be, what are the oldest generations in the family that are closest to this unmarried female? So 7th generation back, I don't know if that's the unknown father of this ancestor or whatever, or if 7 generations back is the ancestor whose father was unknown. But basically, if you can find someone who maybe is 2 generations closer or whatever, instead of their 5th great grandparent, it's their 3rd great grandparent, you're going to have a lot better luck in figuring that out. Another thing that you're going to want to do in terms of that is doing clusters on your family that are matches. So basically, you have this 5th great grandfather, whatever, that you don't know, but you must know the children of that 5th great grandfather. And I assume some of those descendants will do the descendancy tree of all of that family, try to identify as many DNA matches that you can from that family that will be your cousins through this line. And if you don't have that many, contact your cousins that or try to track down some cousins to figure it out. I mean, if you're talking about, a 5th great grandfather, then you're talking about, what is that, 3rd, 4th cousins? Because great grandfather, or no, sorry, that's going to be even more. Great grandfather or great grandparent. If you share great grandparents, then that means that you're 2nd cousins. So it's one more. So yeah, it'd be like 6 cousins, or so there'd be a lot to look for in there. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Okay, I kind of lost where I was. All right. Yoka, my heritage, I still have the old version, is indeed rather off from my ancestry percentages. Their genetic groups, however, are spot on. Any explanation for that? Probably just in the fact of what we say all the time, and that the DNA matches are the best part of the DNA test. And when they're doing their genetic groups, that's based on your DNA matches. So when they do the, percentages, the ancestry percentages, that's them correlating the segments of your DNA to the segments they've identified as certain population groups. Whereas the genetic groups, they're looking at your DNA matches who also are getting these percentages of ancestry, and where are these DNA matches saying they're coming from. So it's kind of the same thing of when people tell me, I got, 4% Jewish and I don't know any Jewish ancestry in my family. Well, go and look at your matches and try to find, do you have any DNA matches that are 100% Jewish? Granted, genetic groups, I don't know if, I think maybe they do have Jewish groups. I can't remember if they do for my heritage, but either way, and if they do have that, then they look through their matches, they will find people that are 100% Jewish. And so, that's why I think genetic groups are so much better, is because they're based off the DNA matches, which is so much better. All right, John Big Booty, hello from Texas. Ancestry's ancestral regions update seems strongly tied to family trees users have built. Do you know if my heritage relies on existing trees? Is it worth doing testing with them? So yes, my heritage does also, I don't know if rely is a good term to use, but yes, they do use the family trees, and both websites are using the family trees for a few things. They're both using the websites for their genetic communities. I don't remember exactly what each one calls them. The last question was just asking about it, the genetic groups. Ancestry, I think they call theirs communities, but basically they're looking at what people are putting in their family trees and then using that information to say, okay, yeah, this is where you seem to be connected, but that's going to be in the ancestry percentage result area. The other place you're using that is both Ancestry and MyHeritage have a tool that looks at your DNA matches, like a specific match, and then looks at their family tree, looks at your family tree, and then tries to identify any commonalities between it. So they're basically using a system to quickly identify this person is your cousin, and here's exactly how you match, because their tree shows this, your tree shows this, and you both have this same person in the tree. So Ancestry's tool for that is called Through Lines. MyHeritage's tool for that is called the Theory of Family Relativity. But basically, both of them are just doing that same thing of relying on the family tree. So you have to take your DNA and connect it into your family tree to be able to utilize those tools. So kind of different than the other thing where, they're just utilizing the trees that your matches have. In this case, it's utilizing your tree and your matches tree. Now, is it worth doing a test with MyHeritage? I highly recommend uploading with them. If you already tested on Ancestry, just upload with MyHeritage. They often will have specials where, upload and you get free access to all this other stuff. If you upload outside that date, then I think there's like a small cost to it, like $9 or $9.99 or $20 or, whatever it is in, the UK or euros or whatever, wherever you may be. Although I guess you're from Texas, so why am I saying that? But it's definitely worthwhile to get in there in the mindset that you're using this for your DNA matches and to build and expand your family tree. If you're just asking, is it worthwhile to get into MyHeritage for the percentages? Not that. I mean, it's going to give you maybe a bit more information, but yeah, very, very, very unlikely. But otherwise, I would recommend. All right, I do need to get somewhat behind, like 20 minutes behind on the matches, or not the matches, the the chat. All right, Vicky, we're gonna give this a try. Sorry, my uncle and half brother have also tested. We as a collective have only matched with the descendant from my second great grandmother. Okay. So if basically what you're asking is because you haven't matched anyone else, does that mean that your family tree is not true? Not necessarily. What you need to do is, number one, find out, are there any cousins or family members who have DNA tested that you would expect to come up as a match? Because if that's the case, then that is showing you something's going on in the tree that is not correct, what we call an NPE, not parent expected, non-paternity event, whatever you want to call it. So if that is the case, then, that's going to be a whole nother issue. But if it's just a matter of you're just not getting matches that are proving your family tree, it may just be that you just don't have a lot of family members who've tested. And that's the case for some people where they do a DNA test and they have very few family members that test. And, over time, you'll probably see more popping up if that's the case. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay, let's see. I may kind of jump forward a little bit. Okay, let me follow up on this. Let's see. Mechanized. Yeah, I've traced family to Holland, Lower Saxony, and Schleswig-Holstein, which might make sense for some of the Danish. The surprise was my heritage putting me at 50% Scandinavian. Well, it was 3% on the other. Okay, yeah. So basically the whole Northwestern European thing. Yeah. Thank you for the answer, though, man. Much appreciated. The majority makes sense with what family I have researched. Okay, well, it's 3% Danish on the Ancestry. Yeah. Okay. Brenda Sears. Ancestry just pushed through an origins update. It took out all of my Greek and Middle Eastern, and now I'm just Italian. Interesting. Now, the question is, does that make more sense with what you know of your family tree? But, yeah, that's going to happen, as they update more and more. Every year there's multiple updates coming out. Everybody's still waiting for the new MyHeritage update, which has been the longest one that's gone, or the site that's gone the longest without updating. But yeah. Cindy, hello. How accurate are through lines on Ancestry before even verifying them? I have 68 from my mom's from Western Europe and none from my dad's side, Eastern Europe. So the accuracy of the through lines is mixed. It depends on your family tree and it depends on your match's family tree. And it also depends on the family tree. Well, yeah, I guess it depends on multiple matches' family trees. But basically, if you have a match who has a family tree that is incorrect, through lines isn't going to be able to tell that it's wrong. They're going to read it as correct, and they're going to give you the information as if it's correct. This is one of the things a lot of people like about MyHeritage's theory of family relativity is that you have an option to reject the theories that they present. With Ancestry, you don't. So if you have a match, especially a close match, who has a tree that is really wrong, it can screw up a lot of your through lines. And I've dealt with this where I had a cousin that was trying to identify her family ancestry, and by doing all of these random trees, and she didn't quite know what she was doing exactly, so she was doing a lot of incorrect stuff, and it ended up screwing up a lot of my through line readings for a lot of my different family lines because she was matching somewhat significantly at like 200 some odd centimorgans or whatever, but it was close enough that when she would make these incorrect trees that it just threw everything off. So you need to look at the trees and you need to look at what is being sourced in these trees if they seem wrong. So the way to look at the accuracy of through lines is the same way that you should be looking at the accuracy of any family tree you've come across, whether it's on Ancestry, whether it's on Genie, or whether it's in a published book. You need to look at the sourcing behind it. You need to look and see the verification of it. And, until you do that, you only have I guess, depending on the source, kind of a 50-50 shot of how good it is. So if, you look at your through lines and you see that, the person doing it is a professional genealogist, and you look at the stuff and they have all of these records and all these sources that indicate that, yes, this is correct, then you can have a lot better feeling of it. Now, in terms of the difference between your mom's side and your dad's side, I think this is a good indication of what you get with the differences of the databases, in that Ancestry is known to have very few people from Eastern Europe who've tested. And when I say from Eastern Europe, I don't mean Eastern European ancestry. I mean people who are living in Eastern Europe, or at the very least were born there. MyHeritage does have a large database of people from Eastern Europe, partially because for years and years and years, they've invested in a much larger, more robust distribution system of their tests. So it's a lot easier to buy MyHeritage DNA tests throughout the world. So Eastern Europe is one of a great example. Another great example is South America. A lot of South Americans on MyHeritage. And so this is probably why your dad's side is getting very few through lines. The other thing is also look at what you've built on your family tree. If you look at your family tree on Ancestry that you've connected to your DNA results, and you see that you have mom's side built out like crazy, and then on dad's side, you only have it built out to your grandparents and nothing else, well, maybe expand your tree, because that can be another part of it, because they need to use your tree too. So the more information you put in there, the less the Ancestry has to guess at it. Obviously, if you don't have a lot of Eastern European matches from that side of your dad's family, that could be part of it too. But then also it depends on what matches of yours from your dad's side have connected their DNA results to their trees. Because if they haven't done that, they won't show up in through lines. So hope that helps. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Catherine, I keep getting matches through lines in theory of relativity. The matches are incorrect as people keep copying errors of other trees. Yeah, it's unfortunate thing that just happens over and over. One of the reasons why I love collaborative trees is because we can correct the errors, and then depending on the tree, correct the errors, and then, lock it if need be. So, I think WikiTree and Genie do a great job of policing their trees in a sense, both doing it somewhat differently. Family Search feels a little bit more Wild West. It's a lot harder to get things corrected and stay corrected on Family Search. But I don't know if they've rolled out a lot of stuff recently to maybe combat that. Bunch of thank yous. You are welcome for the help. All right. Multiverso Greek. Have you heard of Genera, the Brazilian company? Yes, I have heard of Genera. I don't have a ton of firsthand experience with it, other than Genera is somewhat notorious in GEDmatch for matching a lot of kits incorrectly. Part of that being that Genera used to test a lot fewer DNA markers. I don't believe that's the case anymore. I think they test a lot more. But if I remember correctly, there was a long time where their tests were only like 60, 70,000 autosomal SNP markers, whereas most DNA tests are usually about 700,000. I believe it. I don't know if they're up to 600,000 now. They might be, because I think the last time I looked at it, I think they had updated it. Yeah, but you can buy it by reads. I guess I might as well. So yeah, I don't know if they're gonna have it listed actually. About us meet. All right, let's see. Total DNA. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, this is a Brazilian-based DNA company. And there's a lot of different DNA test companies that are based around the world. I think I've talked about Genera before. I know I've talked about a lot of the Asian-based DNA test companies, WeGene and 23mofang being the two big ones. Trying to remember if there were some other ones that stood out, but yeah. Yeah, all DNA testing companies have sales going on this weekend. Good to know. Yeah, and they almost always have sales going on. When Through Lines was free, I got linked to many matches because the female had the same name in it, but no connection to my ancestor. Yeah. Okay. Frank, I did build my family tree and found out my great-granddad's dad had Sephardic ancestry from Netherlands, and his mom had Ashkenazi ancestry from Germany. Her surname was Meyer, could just be German. So very interesting that you mentioned that, because I also come from a Dutch Sephardic ancestry. I come from a Dutch Ashkenazi ancestry as well. But from my experience, when I look at the results for my family that come from the Sephardic ancestry, if we figure out how much Sephardic ancestry we expect to get, usually it gets lumped into Mediterranean readings, usually like Italian or Greek or even I think like North African and Egyptian, a lot of that. And so basically from that, I've found that, it seems that for a lot of the Western Sephardic Jews, so the Jews that are coming from London and Amsterdam and Livorno, Hamburg, Jamaica, Curacao, New York, South Carolina, all those, the Western Sephardic communities, as opposed to the Eastern Sephardic communities such as Salonika and Istanbul and, places within the Ottoman Empire. And also as opposed to the North African Sephardic communities, such as those in Morocco and Tunisia. So basically, with the Western Sephardic, they seem to fall into those. So if you look at a lot of your results and see some of those Mediterranean things popping up, that may be representative of that Sephardic ancestry, especially if you have DNA matches confirming that. Because if your great-grandfather's father was Sephardic ancestry, the second great-grandfather, then presumably you should hopefully find matches that would confirm that, or you can at least ask relatives to DNA test to help confirm that. But yeah, that may be what's going on. But yeah, if you have Dutch Sephardic ancestry, you're probably my cousin. In fact, you definitely are my cousin. It's just a matter of figuring it out and figuring out how many times we're related. But anyone who descends from the Dutch Jewish families, especially the Dutch Sephardic families, they almost always, you can find how they're connected to almost every single other Dutch Jew. One of the things that's really useful in terms of understanding DNA and endogamy, because with Dutch Jewish family trees, Ashkenazi and Sephardic, we can actually build them out and find how everyone connects. Whereas Ashkenazi Jewish from Eastern Europe, that's really the more difficult part, is not necessarily the endogamy causing issues with DNA, more of the fact that we just can't build the trees to find the connections. So the endogamy makes it much harder to identify who should be matching where. But with the Dutch Sephardic trees, just the Dutch Jewish trees, not, both Ashkenazi and Sephardic, the Ashkenazi community in Amsterdam dates back to the 1600s, and the Sephardic community dates back to the early 1600s. But the first Sephardic Jews in Amsterdam are noted back to the late 1500s. So yeah. All right. I think I'm going to jump forward a bit. I see a lot of comments and stuff. Not sure what you mean. Do you know about the sequencing DNA company? I do not. Sequencing DNA company. Sequencing DNA tests. Maybe I feel like this looks kind of familiar, but I don't know if it's just because their logo looks. But this, whole genome sequencing, which is okay. That's good. But this seems like it's just focused on health, which, some people, that is what they want. But, our focus obviously is the ancestry. So assuming that you can obviously download your BAM and CRAM files and all that fun stuff. But this is one of the things with the DNA testing world, is that I get asked a lot about like health DNA testing and, DNA testing outside of genetic genealogy. And I always have to kind of answer similarly of, I really don't know that much outside of the general genetic genealogy community. Well, I guess that's not 100% true, because I do know a lot in terms of the forensic side of things, and I probably know more than the average genetic genealogist. But a lot of, when it gets into like the health stuff and a lot of the more in-depth stuff that's outside of genetic genealogy, I really only know the basics at best. So yeah. I think that's one of the things with the DNA field is a lot of people don't realize how expansive it truly is. And people will be like, oh, you do DNA? Do you know about this thing that's the complete other side of DNA testing? Or like, yeah. All right. Mike L, question. Could you give an explanation on how to effectively use the auto clusters tool on MyHeritage? I mean, I'll try to give somewhat of a succinct answer. I don't know how much. I've been going for over an hour. I definitely can't go too long. I got an appointment today. But I would suggest looking at, reading articles and looking at stuff, because this is one of those topics that if you really want to know how to truly effectively do it, you need an in-depth dive into it. That's probably going to be, take a whole stream for me to go through like a lesson of how to effectively do auto clusters. But the basic idea with auto clusters is that when you run the auto cluster, each auto cluster is going to give you just a couple of names. And of all of those names, all those DNA matches, if you were able to build out their perfect family trees, you should find a common ancestor that all of them descend from. And presumably your DNA tester descends from that common ancestor as well. So when you find a cluster, you want to build out their family trees, because once you've identified what ancestors they share, then your DNA tester should either descend from that same shared ancestor or be related through that family. So, maybe, you find a cluster of people that are all matching, and you see that they all have the second great grandparent, Josiah or something like that. And you look at your family tree and you see, oh, I have a second great grandmother, Sarah Josiah. Oh, okay, well, maybe that's the connection, or, now that's obviously, you get something like that. That's really, really, crazy to that'd be easy to find. But, that's the basic idea of, you get your clusters. And so now you're going to focus on a cluster at a time by building each one of those person's family trees. As you build those family trees, you're trying to find where they all connect. Once you find where they all connect, then you try to find out how you connect into that. So if you can't necessarily find how you connect into that, that's where other tools come in, such as the what are the odds tool, or what's nicknamed WATO, or you could use Banyan DNA technically, or just, there's other tools you can use once you've gotten to that point. But it can be a long process, because sometimes you have to go through a couple of clusters before you find one where you can even identify a shared ancestor between those matches. The other difficulty is depending on what kind of an auto cluster result you're getting. If you come from an endogamous population and you're going through MyHeritage to do it, your auto cluster is going to look like a big mess, and you're not going to make any sense of it. And in that case, you're going to need to get on GEDmatch and use their endogamy auto cluster, which is something that's just been developed. I was part of helping develop that. And it's something that we're still kind of playing around with to find out what are the best ways to get the best results from it. So it's still kind of an expanding field too. One thing I'd suggest is learn about the leads method if you have not. The leads method is kind of the more basic version of auto clustering. And doing that, I think, is a good process of allowing you to better understand what's going on with auto clustering if it just seems to be a bit too much. So yeah, hopefully that can help. Hopefully that can help. De Boy, I am Dutch. Hi. Hoi, mein Dutchie. My dad is over half Indonesian according to the DNA test, but my aunt is only 10% Chinese. They have the same parents, and my dad is very light, and my aunt is brown. Could the test be wrong? Well, the big question is, did they test at the same site? Because if they did not test at the same website, then that's a big reason why their results may be different. Because especially, over half Indonesian according to the DNA test, and then you're on 10% Chinese. Well, if they're testing on other sites, take a look and see, how they're lumping things together. Because what you may end up having to do is look at it at a regional level, and basically, instead of really focusing on it saying Indonesian or Chinese or specific things within Asia, basically just think of it as kind of Western Asia, or sorry, excuse me, not Western Asia, Eastern Asia and Southeastern Asia. So that that's one of the unfortunate things with a lot of these DNA sites that are the English speaking websites. So Ancestry, MyHeritage, 23andMe, Living DNA, Family Tree DNA. These sites largely are coming from an English speaking world: America, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa is a big one too. And that's where you find a lot of the testers through. And a lot of the focus is not as much on Asia. So you may want to look into having your father and your aunt do an Asian-based DNA test, two big ones being 23andMe and WeGene. And if you do those, maybe those will give a bit more of a nuanced result, because with an Asian-based database, they may be able to figure out a lot more with those results. Dutch with the Indonesian background, never heard of that before. I'm just kidding. I have a bunch of my cousins who live in the Netherlands who come from Dutch or Indonesian ancestry, and then a lot with connections. My cousin who owns a chocolate shop with his Indonesian wife, who came from the Spice Islands. They own it's called Cacao and Spice. If you're anyone in Amsterdam, go check that out. Amazing chocolate shop, very cool people. And then you can say, hey, I heard you're Genie Vlogger's cousin. And then his wife, Salome, actually has a couple of siblings who are also YouTubers as well. I keep getting info about my uncle's family on MyHeritage, even though he was my uncle-in-law. Strange. That could very well be, because depending on the family, he may be a distant cousin to you in some way that you didn't realize. Of course, it could also be depending on how the family trees are built and things like that. If your uncle has descendants on MyHeritage and they're matching you, and the trees are built incorrectly, they might show some stuff weirdly. I don't know. But yeah, I guess it really depends. I have Dutch Jewish ancestry. He converted in 1600. Converted to a Christian. Interesting. That's definitely a rarity. Early 1600s. And what's funny too is that what really is, he's probably not necessarily converting to a Christian. It's probably he's just going back, because in the 1600s, the Jews that were arriving in the Netherlands were coming from Portugal largely, and they had been living for generations as new Christians. And once they came to Amsterdam, that's where they had to learn how to be Jewish again. So if a big figure in the history is Rabbi Uriah Levi, who had come from Emden, Germany, to teach the Jews of the 1600s in Amsterdam how to be Jews. But a lot of them ended up going back to Christianity. In fact, the famous Maria Nunez, who there is a play about, she was a woman who was, I talked about in one of my videos. You can find a lot of different articles about her. I know how I'm related to her. One of my ancestors is her first cousin. But basically, she's, trying to be Jewish, and she's fleeing Portugal with her family. They're captured by the English, and then she's so beautiful and smart that she's taken to the court of Queen Elizabeth, who then says that she's so smart and beautiful that she releases her to go to Amsterdam to live her life as a Jew. And, the stories, there's a lot of questions with it, how true it is or not. Go to my main channel. I have a video all about it called The Origins of the Portuguese Jewish Community of Amsterdam. But basically, the reality is that she then went back to Portugal years later and went back to being a Christian. So it's very interesting history. Okay, let's see. Wow, I am far behind. Je zou denken dat niet veel verschil in zou zitten. Okay, I'm gonna have a hard one with that. I just learned negative, so not a lot. You think that you're gonna have to translate for me, Rob? Je heb ik, we zijn Indo, maar de test kwam raar uit. Yeah, I need to. I'm learning my Dutch. Ik leer Nederlands. Ik leer. Ik ben slecht met Nederlands. Yeah, it was nice when you did Matt Baker's DNA. I learned a few new things since we were related from the Maritimes in Canada. Good, yeah. Glad that was helpful. All right, yeah. I think you guys are talking to each other in Dutch. I'm not even gonna try. I'm at my point with Dutch where I need someone to actually talk with. I need to I've already asked a couple of my cousins in Amsterdam, like, hey, you want to do video calling with me? And they're like, yeah. I just haven't actually gone through to do it. All right, let's see if there's any questions. Oh, my Dutch is good. Oh, I do. Ik ken niet. Yeah, expect een beetje Nederlands. Can Ashkenazi Jewish DNA sometimes show up as Germanic DNA? I'm not 100% sure if it really necessarily will. My understanding from a lot of the plot maps that I've seen with DNA testing is shown that European Jewish or not European, but Europeans and Ashkenazi Jews are somewhat close and overlapping, but it like depends. So I don't know how common it would be for Germanic DNA to come up and actually be representative of Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry as opposed to non-Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. But my understanding is that no, very unlikely. Yeah, so if you're getting Germanic DNA, I would think that may be more representative of actual Germanic, not necessarily actual German, but think Germanic Empire and kind of a little Northwestern European, basically. But you did mention that it was like you only have the one line of the family that's Jewish. So if you have so if you have a lot of family lines that are coming from a Germanic Empire connection, somewhat similar, then yeah, you can look or consider that correlated. Sorry, I'm probably going to need to end this. I'm starting to get to the point of like, I'm not even able to talk. You're not bad. Keep practicing. Maybe start reading like beginner books that children use to learn to read. I've been doing what they call the baby method, where I listen to a lot of Dutch music now. In fact, actually, one of my favorite groups to listen to is Vant Vant and Foco, which I think Foco was from Vant Vant. But like I've listened to a lot of, what's that one guy? And that song. What is that song? You'll know it. And like a lot of that. Then I've also been watching a lot of like Dutch kids programs and things like that. And then actually, I wonder if I can reach it from here. I have this book that my roommate got me for my birthday. So I've been kind of going through it and trying to get that down. So the problem is because I haven't been speaking it with anybody, I can't think in it. Like if I do if I do the things, if someone gives me a sentence and is like, here's a sentence, translate it, or, do this, depending on my knowledge, I can get it. Like I just learned negatives. So, what is it? Exprek geen Nederlands. I do not, or don't you speak, or wait, no, spreek je geen Nederlands? Yeah. Spreek je geen Nederlands. Do you not speak Dutch? As opposed to, Je spreekt Nederlands. Do you speak Dutch? Yeah. Your family with the chocolate shop, do they have a ship made of clothes in their shop? Yes. My cousin Ian Wagenhouse and his wife Salome. That is the shop, Cacao and Spice. So actually, when I went to their shop, Ian was telling me, and hopefully I've corrected this, is he was like, you need to correct your ich because you're saying it more German. Because I guess I was saying ich, ich ben ich ben a Nederlander, or yeah, I don't know. But so I hopefully I say it ich instead. But yeah, this is my cousin's shop. Yeah, thanks for the help. My pleasure. My pleasure. Yes, when I'm in Indonesia, my Indonesian is way better than when I'm in Netherlands. Yeah. Ik dem. Yeah, not personally, ik the shot. Yeah, you know the shot. Yeah, Kentje the, I don't know, shop. I don't know. The shop is it in the stat? Yeah. That's it. Wow. I've seen a video of them. They're so nice. Wow. Small. Super nice. In fact, when I went into the store, I did not know he was my cousin at first. If you watch my video on my main channel of when I went to visit, let's do this. I went and visited Amsterdam. I met a ton of my cousins. So this one right here, meeting my long lost cousins in Europe. And I went to their shop, and I talk about me. And, it's a small world. Yeah, I didn't really get anything. Do I have? I know I got a photo. Yeah. I think the audio is not on right now, so I don't know if you can hear it, but yeah, so I randomly went in, didn't realize they were cousins. We started talking, then figured out like, oh, we might be cousins, and I looked it up and I found out that how we're related in like a bunch of ways. So yeah, when a North African gets East Asian or Central Asian traces on 23andMe results, does it indicate distant Ottoman, Turk, or Mongol ancestry? I don't know if it necessarily, I would say it indicates a possibility, but it's just one hypothesis among hundreds, if not thousands of possibilities. I think you'd need to do a lot more research with it. And especially depending on, what type of North African are we talking about? Are we talking about Egypt North African, where we do have a very strong correlation to Central Asia, and you do have the Arabian Peninsula in between, but that's going to be a very different thing than Moroccan North African, which is the other side. Then again, maybe it's like a Tunisian North African where you have a lot of Mediterranean connections through that as well. So granted, a lot of North Africa has a lot of Mediterranean connections with that. So yeah, so it's certainly a possibility. But like I said, I think it's, just one of many, distant Ottoman, Turk, or Mongol, it also depends. What is the trace result? Are we talking a 0.4% result? Are we talking a 2% result? Yeah. All right, let's see. Yeah. You could read picture books and also eventually children's books, novels. Yeah, I am trying to use books and stuff, but I think the big thing is I just need to start speaking in Dutch more, and not just reading about it and what I need to actually think and talk and all of that. Like every time I'm on here, this is the most I talk about it. The most I say, yeah. Ik spreek Nederlands meer op de stream then what is anywhere? Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, I saw that shop when her sister went there from Josepha Tripp YouTube channel. Yeah, she has two sisters who are YouTubers, and Josepha Tripp is one of them. Drea, late but you're here. Hello. Ja, ken ook Joke maar den wel met Nederlandse ondertiteling. Kind of kept up with that with Yoka too, but yeah. All right. Hey, Yoga, that's the same exact same video I've seen. Yeah. Overall, everywhere. But what's anywhere? What's that? What? Yeah. I don't know. I'll learn. I'm gonna learn my Dutch. Maybe I should do a live stream one day and go through the Discord and have it where I'm trying to talk Dutch with you all. Maybe that's what I need to do too. Maybe I need to just have a only speaking Dutch. Granted, I'll do terrible. There's so much I have to learn. But I definitely, I think I've got some of the pronunciation stuff down. So, especially learning some of the more advanced words, beginners learn, like, Israelisha or is that because like one of the words that I learned really early on that was like, oh my gosh, mind-blowing revelation in the family was schoon, which is clean. And the reason why is because my second great grandmother, Jane Moscow, was born Sklentia Moscow. And it was like, wait, what? Why is she Sklentia? And I looked and I saw a whole bunch of the family were Sklentia. And I was like, what does that mean? And I didn't even know how to say it. Because I was saying shuntja, but then, once I learned schoon and then it's schontia, it was like, oh, so it just means like cleanly or whatever, or beautiful, I guess. And then, because that's, because it can also mean beautiful. So it was like, oh, because I was just like, what is going on? Jane schontia? Like, I don't know, So, yeah, I don't even know Dutch. Yeah, well, it's a good. It's an interesting language to learn. It's a lot like English, but yeah. Net Zol's angles, Net Zol's angles. Yeah. So that's not common. So cool. All right. Oh wait, what is? Oh yeah, that's. It's like, what is going on here? Okay. All right, well, I think I'm gonna end it there. One last shout out for the new Clips channel. If you have not gone to subscribe to it and watch the videos, please do. I'm really trying to get this channel to build up and be a fun place for a lot of people to discover about the live stream. Thank you everybody for joining today. Not sure what I'm going to be doing next week on the main channel, but thinking I might do another building your family trees. So we'll see. But thank you. I spend so much time thinking. I can't help myself. But you all have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Jarrett Rossi, Vlogger. I'm out.